In the last lesson, we looked at how to track and save users' browser sessions in the database. Now, let's look at how to display them to users. I will start by creating a route for that, which will be a get route. And I'm going to call it sessions. Ideally, this will be under users account or users settings. But to keep things simple, I'm going to be doing it this way. Then it will be handled by a login session controller by an index method on the controller. So let's create the controller. And open it up. What we are going to do here is basically fetch the sessions for the currently authenticated user. Instead of doing that directly inside the index method, I'm going to do that inside the login session class. So I'm going to create a sessions method that will accept the authenticated user. Then we can do await session.query where user ID equals to the ID of the authenticated user. Instead of doing this, we could create a relationship between the session model and the user model. So let's do that inside the user model. This is going to be a one-to-many relationship. And this will point to the session model. And the name of the relationship will be sessions. That is, a user can have many sessions, and it will be a type of has many and a type of session. We really don't need to define the inverse of the relationship. So now, instead of doing this, we can make use of the relationship and say user.related. Then we'll pass the sessions relationship. I'm going to sort the record in descending order. And I'm going to order by the last active at field. If we head over to the database one more time, looking at the user agent, you will see we can't really make sense of it by mere looking at it. How many of our users will understand what Gecko is or what Apple WebKit is? So we need a way to translate or pass this into user-friendly details so that they can easily identify what device and browser they've logged in on. For that, I'm going to be installing a package that will help us with that. npm install. The name of the package is browser. Once installed, then we can make use of it. First, let me pull it in. Import browser from browser. For each of the session record, we want to pass the user agent details. So I'm going to call the map method on this. First, let me wrap this in brackets. Then I'll call the map method, which will loop through each of the record and return an array containing modified records. The returned array is going to have the following structure. It's going to contain an ID, which will be session.id, then agent or user agent. This is where we are going to use the browser package, browser.parse. Then I'll pass the user agent. Next, it's going to have an IP address, which will be the IP address from the session. Then last active at, which will be session.lastActiveAt. Lastly, we need a way to know if the session is the current session. So we are going to have an isCurrentDevice property, which will contain a boolean that will check if the session ID is equals to the current session ID. And to do that, we need to allow the sessions method to accept the current session ID, current session ID, which is going to be a string. So now we can do session.id equals current session ID. What we are saying here is if the current session ID is equals to the session ID from the database, that means the device is the device with which the user is currently logged in with. We need to return this. Then we can return here also. I'm going to save to reformat. Next, let's make use of the sessions method. Await login session dot sessions. Remember, the method accepts the currently authenticated user and the current session ID. So I'm going to pull in auth and session from the context. Then we can do auth dot user, then session dot session ID. Then we can save this in a variable, say sessions. Then lastly, we can return a view. So view dot render. I'm going to call the view sessions, then pass the sessions. Next, let's create the view. We are going to start with the content of the dashboard. This is going to be browser sessions. We're going to display them in a table. To save us some typing, I'm going to paste the markup for the table. So it's typical table with some tailwind CSS. The first heading is going to be device. Then we have IP address. And this will be last active. Then for the body, we are going to loop through the array. Each session in sessions. For the device, we are going to do session.agent.browser.name. We are able to do this because of the browser package. So we are displaying the browser name and session.agent.os.name and the name of the operating system. I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times. This will be session.ip address. Then this will be session.lastActive@. Lastly, let's add a way to navigate to the sessions page. We are going to do that inside the app layout. We are going to display it before the logout option. This will be /sessions. Personally, I prefer using the route global, so I'm going to switch to that. Then I'll pass to it the login sessions controller and specifically the index method. Then this will be sessions. Let me copy these styles from here. And this will be block. Now let's check what we have so far in the browser. We now have a link to go to the sessions page. We can see the session details. So far, these are the browsers I have used to log in to my account, Safari and Firefox, both on my Mac. The IP address is undefined. Oh, I omitted a D. Now we are displaying the IP address correctly.